Well. This is gonna be a big week. Let's not forget that this is our kind of Apple event week. I don't even know what to call it.
Yeah, I'm fixing my microphone.
Oh
Sorry.
no,
It probably sounds really bad right now.
it sounds like dog shit.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
This is so sad.
Okay,
But hey,
should
I hope that everybody enjoyed last week's episode. I know we had that special episode with Alex from the band Valley, which that was a really fun episode to film, and I'm glad people liked it. I was following along in the live chat. It seemed like people enjoyed watching that.
yeah, that was this is still not working. I'm working on it. But that was a that was such a cool. You can hear me, right? Even though it sounds bad, you can at least hear me.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I'm fixing it. But that was genuinely such a cool experience to be able to do that.
Is it good? Oh, is it good now?
Ugh. Sorry, I'm sleepy. I went surfing yesterday, but yeah, that was a really cool experience.
Can you hear? Does my sound better
Oh, it sounds horrible.
right now?
It sounds like the mic is in your butthole. It's like really, really quiet and muffled. And there's
What
like
about
a
now?
huge. Now that's better. There's still like a background hiss.
Really? Oh God. See the. Hang on. Is that any better?
That
No.
sounds more normal.
Is there still like noise in the background or something?
No, actually, I think it's fixed. I think that sounds good.
Okay, well, the thing is that I brought this microphone and my Zoom recorder and everything to LA when we filmed the
Yeah, and all the settings got
episode.
changed.
Yeah, or I think my dial, the gain or volume or whatever dial was like all the way down or something, or most of the way down. But yeah, I think hopefully we're good now.
Well, it's always good to start with a little live troubleshooting. That's why they call us the technology experts, after all.
That's right. Not just anyone could have fixed that issue.
Exactly. Normal people would have been like, what the hell? Well, to be fair, normal people also probably just wouldn't be doing a podcast. We're
That's
very
true.
abnormal.
That
But I'll
is
tell you
true.
what, we've got DOS Dude in the chat. How about that?
Oh, very nice. What's up?
DOS Dude, for whom we've got a little bit of a scheme cooking for next week.
That's right.
Technically this week. So that'll be a little fun scheme that you will see on the channel, I think, pretty soon. I think I'll probably get something up in November. I'll coordinate with DOS Dude, but that's going to be a fun one. Less fun for you picking it up, but I will compensate you for your troubles.
No, that'll be good. I get to be the first person to lay eyes on it. Very exciting.
That's true. A very, very rare thing. I've never even seen one in person or for sale for that matter. So I don't know how. I mean, obviously, DOS Dude, he knows what he's doing. All right. The bro is scouring eBay 24/7. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah. That'll be. I don't know what you're here. Wait, I don't know what you're doing with this thing, but I'm very curious because it seems very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna leave the doing things with it to Colin, and I'm gonna focus on the holy cow, what the heck is this thing aspect of it.
Oh, I see. So are you? I guess I don't know the details of this operation, and maybe this is not the best
mysterious.
time
I like how we're just
discuss it.
discussing this in code so that people don't get wind of what we're plotting.
Yeah. Okay, maybe we'll talk
Well,
about
no,
it
ask what you were
later.
gonna ask.
I was
It's
just
kind
gonna
of enjoyable. Ask in code, and I'll answer it in code.
are you so this thing that I'm picking up is gonna make a few stops on the way to its destination, shall we say?
I would say I think it'll be doing one stop.
One okay, sure, one layover on route.
Right. Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Yes, and will you be joining this thing at its destination?
I I will not be. I will be providing comfort
Mm,
and preparing for its solo trip to the destination.
I see. So the layover is not merely a a formality. There's actually a purpose to it.
Yes, yeah. That is true. And so Steven here, I feel bad that we're talking in code here is asking, is it bigger than a bread box? Yeah. Yeah, it is. Oh God. Anyway, why don't we just get into the show? We've got, there's a decent amount to talk about this week, so I figure we might as well just get started. Why not, huh?
Yeah, there is a super chat. I don't know if you want to address that on the
Oh, good
show
point.
or this, potentially. I
You
don't want to
know,
say anything, but
wow,
potentially you might have an
really
answer.
timely comment, wouldn't you say?
If I'm allowed to, then I would.
Hmm. The answer to this question is you'll have to wait and find out. Anyway, let's start the show now and take no further questions.
All right.
All right. Someone wants to play 20 questions. I would, but I don't want to distract. You guys are going to like the video.
You
It's
don't want
very
to
niche
spoil
though.
it.
I feel like it's not going to get that many views from my audience because of how niche it is, but we're going to see what we can do.
It's gonna be good.
Yeah. But let's talk about the upcoming Macs, shall we? By starting this week's episode. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to Dark Mode, the podcast that brings you sage advice from two technology experts. And that's not just what we call ourselves. It's what our moms tell people when they bought a new Mac a month ago and we're mad at them. I'm your host, Luke Miani.
And I'm your host, Noah Rubin. On this show, we take questions from listeners, attempt to answer them to varying degrees of success, and maybe even have a laugh or two along the way.
And in fact, this week, our laugh or two is going to be sort of up for debate because we are heading into, I think, just about 12 hours from now, kicking off the start of some week of announcements. We had a very surprising last minute tweet from Greg Joswiak at Apple, and so look, I'm gonna have to just pull this up here because we have to dive into this. I didn't make a video on it because I didn't really know what to make of it. But let me just put this up here. This is an unprecedented thing that Apple did here. Greg Jaws tweeted, "Mac winky face emoji, your calendars. We have an exciting week of announcements ahead starting on Monday morning. Stay tuned." And we have a nice little, obviously, Apple Intelligence inspired animation with a little Finder icon. All well and good. But what does it mean? Well, if I may read the tea leaves, I think we might get a new Mac this week.
Oh, where did you get that idea from?
I know. So you see, what I did here was I read between the lines. All right. If you calendar, right? The calendar app was first introduced on the Mac. And they said we have an exciting week of announcements. Announce M4 chip. And then starting on Monday morning, that's two M's, Mac with M4 chip.
Mac Mini.
That's
Mac Mini.
oh, look at that. It's got layers to it. This is clever.
Wow. I didn't even, I looked at the terrible pun that they started with, Mac your calendars, and that was, I think a judge got overwhelmed by that, the audacity to attempt a pun like that.
I don't think that means anything.
I think it was just it might have been a typo actually, because it's like, I think they meant to say mark your calendars,
right.
and it was a typo.
Yeah, and because he's, he's the marketing manager, so he would make a mistake like that, and he would accidentally put Mac when he actually meant Mark. So
No, you know
we'll
what
forgive
happened?
it.
I know exactly what happened. He was on his iPhone and he was typing in Mark, but he accidentally hit the little globe icon. You ever do that? You hit the little globe icon by accident. You go to the emoji keyboard and you just put that winky face emoji by accident. Does that ever happen to you?
You're
That
right.
happens to me
That
sometimes.
does happen. Oh, all the time. Every once in a while, I just start typing in Norwegian because, you hit that little globe and holy hell, how did this happen? I don't know.
Exactly. So I'm pretty sure he was trying to write Mark, switch to the emoji keyboard, and he was like, who cares? Dump it.
Dump it. This one sucks. And as Lewis points out, Apple autocorrect is really that bad, to be fair. And, I think we're really seeing evidence of that. But if we may get into the actual announcements that we're going to expect, Colin here points out the obvious. I just want to see the new Mac Mini design. Holy heck. Can we please? This is actually the craziest. I think this is the longest gap of any Apple product ever made. And as I make that claim, I'm of course wary because the eagle-eyed viewers always like to point out when I'm wrong. But given that this current design of Mac Mini initially launched in 2010 with an optical drive slot, and apart from the removal of the optical drive slot, and then later the removal of the infrared receiver, that's how old this design is, it has not changed.
Yeah, literally, the optical drive, the infrared sensor, it's the same. Yeah, it's been the same design for 14 years. Is that right? That's crazy.
Yeah, 14, a little bit more than 14 years, which is it's just comedic. Like what are we doing here? How?
Yeah, it desperately needs an upgrade, and I think it's kind of crazy that it hasn't happened yet. Like Apple Silicon, I feel like Apple Silicon is the perfect time for them to do it, because literally the Apple Silicon Mac Mini is way bigger than it needs to be, and I'm surprised that it's taking them this long into the lifespan of Apple Silicon to do this. But I'm glad that they're doing it.
Yeah, and it's overdue because as Colin is pointing out here, the M1 and the M2 logic board in the current Mac Mini enclosure is just ridiculous. There's so much empty space, and it uses the same power supply that has been in there since I think the 2018 Mac Mini. So it's 150 watt PSU for an M2 chip, which uses like 60 watts total system under full load. So it's a ludicrously unnecessary power supply that they only kept because they were lazy. Same thing with the case. They were lazy, and because people have been using it for so long, it makes sense. So for this new Mac Mini, I mean, really the question is, how big is the rectangle? Because that's how much. What more can you really do with this? They're not going to make it shaped like a banana.
That would be kind of cool, but no, it's definitely gonna be a rectangle. I think it's interesting because to your point, when Apple Silicon first came out, we got the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro, and that was using the same design from the Intel days. And same with the Mac Mini, right? The first Apple Silicon devices all used. I mean, the first Apple Silicon device was the DTK, and that was a Mac Mini. So they were using the old stuff, but then very early into the lifespan, we got the new MacBook Pros and MacBook Airs, which are significant, redesigns from the Intel days. And it is funny that like they got the redesign, everything got the iMac got the redesign. I guess the Mac Studio is a new thing, but like all these things, and then like I guess Apple kind of forgot about the Mac Mini. They put the chip in there. They upgraded the chip at least one time, but like, yeah, it's really funny that it's taken this long.
It is a little goofy. I really don't. I mean, I guess of all of the Apple products to not get updated in a while, this is the one that I will excuse, because at the end of the day, it's a little box. That's it. It doesn't need to be fancy. It doesn't need any, design. It doesn't have a screen. It doesn't have an external power supply. It is literally just, do you want an Apple Silicon chip in a box? Period. End of sentence. And so, I'm glad that we're getting a redesign, but I've seen some comments here, and I want to echo those, that I am worried that we're going to go to an external power supply. That was the original Intel, actually the original Power PC Mac Mini, which kept its design for the Intel transition. And that thing had an external power supply. It was also not really all that mini. So we could hopefully see the best of both worlds. I think Apple has the ability to make this thing significantly smaller while maintaining an internal power supply and making the footprint a lot tinier. I did see the Chen here in chat asking, are we expecting it to be fanless? That I'm not so sure. I think they probably could make it fanless. The issue is, as we know now, Apple puts the Pro chip in the Mac Mini as well. And I don't think you'd be able to fit a fanless M4 Pro chip in a smaller design. I think that might be pushing it. So I don't know. I really don't know what to expect.
Yeah, I feel like it doesn't necessarily need to be like, to your point, there's already so much empty space in the Mac Mini that it can definitely shrink down, even if you keep a fan, if you have a fan in it, even if you have the power supply built in. And I feel like that would be, if the fan is necessary to get the performance out of it, then keep the fan. The external or the internal power supply is obviously nice. I wonder if they will reuse the iMac power supply, because that one has the Ethernet port on the power supply, right? It was like there's like something special about it. So the actual plug that plugs in is like a proprietary thing, right?
Yeah, it has like a sort of a MagSafe-esque plug with like a couple of pins and a locking thing. It was a well-designed and very over-engineered plug. The thing is, though, I think this is a little different, because in the case of the iMac, I can understand why they wanted to put the power brick outside, because it's very slim. The entire guts of the computer basically have to fit in the chin, leaving the whole back of the thing just to be, aluminum cooling channels and the extremely thin but large subwoofer chambers for the speakers. So I get that. And then having the Ethernet port there makes sense as well, because the iMac is supposed to be a super slim, super minimal all-in-one on your desk. So if you can move as many cables off of the desk as possible, that's a good thing. The Mac Mini, though, definitionally is going to have ports coming out of the back of it. In fact, a lot of people put it under the desk and have a totally minimal setup, which I think would be a good idea. So I don't know. I personally would put my money on an internal power supply, all ports being on the back of the device like what we have now. The thing that I'm most curious about is, are we going to get ports on the front of the device?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I do agree with you. I think the best overall option would be, basically what we have today, like Ethernet port and all the ports are built in and whatever. So hopefully that's what they go with. But It is a good question about the front. So the Mac Studio has the SD card slot and what is it, like 2 USB-C ports? Is that right?
Yeah. And those USB-Cs are either 3.1 Gen 2 or something like that. If you
Okay.
have the Max chip, and then if you have the Ultra chip, then they're Thunderbolt ports.
Hmm.
So I don't know that we would get. I mean, what is it? The current M2 Mac Mini has 2 Thunderbolt ports, and the M2 Pro has 4. Could they put an extra USB-C non-Thunderbolt on the front? I would love an SD on the front. That'd be great. I know a lot of people would. I mean, dude, the value proposition is crazy. I hope they don't raise the price, because imagine if you could get this compact, very pretty little box with the M4 chip, which has plenty of power for a lot of people, with an SD card on the front so that creatives can use it for, like, oh my God, that'd be the perfect machine for Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, even light video editing. If you do like wedding photography, that thing would be absolutely perfect. Oh my God. I'm excited. You know what? I'm hyping myself up here. Just thinking about this. It's like, dang, this is going to be an absolutely fantastic device.
Yeah, I'm like, because I'm sitting here thinking about it, I'm like, I don't have any use for this thing. There's no reason why I would buy one, because I literally, the only time that I sit down in front of a monitor with my personal computer is to do this podcast.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah, right now is the, like, other, at work I have, my work computer and my work monitor, whatever. But like when I'm not at work, this is the only time that I sit down in front of a thing, and I just bring my laptop down here and plug it in. So I have no reason to buy a Mac Mini, but just the thought of like a cute little Apple TV looking box that runs full Mac OS and like, very powerful, whatever. It's like such a, like an attractive idea that I'm like, I don't know. I'm not going to buy one, but like, I'm going to go to the Apple store and I'm going to see it. I'm going to say like, oh, look, it's so cute. Look at the little guy.
It's a little guy. And if you had use for it, I don't know. I feel like I'm in a similar boat here. I don't actually have a need for that Mac Mini, because I have a Mac Pro, which is sort of the Mac Mega, if you will. My big boy over here. But if it weren't for the fact that I need the extra performance, and I really like having room for my internal drive setup, if it weren't for those factors, I really think an M4 Pro Mac Mini is probably the best computer in the entire world. Straight up.
Wow.
It hasn't even
Bold.
come out yet.
Yeah, and it's already won. It's already the best.
So we'll come back and talk a little bit more about the Mac Mini, but I want to talk about how we expect these announcements to unfold, because we've got a couple of products to expect. Let me go through the list. I'm sure you've heard of these. If there's anything else that I'm forgetting, let me know. But what we're expecting is obviously the Mac Mini. We've been told a new iMac, which would just be another spec bump, swap in the M4 chip, call it a day. And then accompanying those devices is updated Magic keyboard and mouse accessories, which would have USB-C. That would complete the transition. And that would, I believe, completely remove Lightning from all of Apple's devices. That would be the end of it. And then in addition to that, obviously, we're looking for the M4, M4 Pro, and M4 Max in the what is possibly the last mid-cycle refresh to this generation of MacBook Pro. So a pretty big week. And I think that's everything.
Yeah. Also, I was just going to mention technically the iPhone SE, I guess, still has Lightning if you want to count that.
Oh, you know what? You're right. I forgot about that. But I'll tell you what, next year, I think we're getting an iPhone SE 4 that'll be kind of like a iPhone 14, but with USB-C. And then it will be no more Lightning.
Yeah. So and I guess technically they still sell the 14 right now, but then next year that'll go away. So yeah, I think like AirPods Max were a holdout and they just got USB-C. and new colors and literally nothing else. Oh my god. And
Disgusting.
I can't get over
What
that.
the
And
hell?
then
I'm still
and
pissed.
then yeah, I know. But the yeah, it's good that the keyboard, mouse, trackpad, all that stuff is gonna get USB-C. That's like one of the major holdouts. And then I guess it's just, the iPhone SE, I think, is the last thing at that point. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's
No,
about
yeah,
time.
that's the rest of it. So let's now talk about the order of these announcements, because obviously we know for a fact that we're getting something tomorrow morning. And that's probably going to be 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific, which is really fun. Thank you so much, Apple. I can't wait to wake up at 6 a.m. so that I could talk about and probably then also spend thousands of dollars. Great, good
Mhm.
work all around. Just no complaints at all. Yeah, so that's a given, but what are they actually going to announce? Now, my first thought was maybe they would start with the Mac Mini because that's the new design. But then I thought, okay, but what about the chips? Because Apple is announcing new MacBook Pros, and the MacBook Pros we know are going to go up through the M4 Pro and Max. So, two possibilities. Either A, they do announce the Mac Mini, and at the same time, they announce the M4 Pro and Max and offer the Max chip in a Mac Mini for the first time. I think is unlikely. Or the
Yeah.
other option would be they start with effectively the chip announcements in the MacBook Pro. And this is what I think is the most likely scenario. Basically, it makes sense to start the week off by saying, we are now launching Apple Intelligence and we are introducing the most powerful ground up chips built for AI, which is what they keep saying now, even though it's obviously kind of baloney.
Mhm.
But then basically that would allow them to announce the chips as the main event tomorrow and the MacBook Pros as the vessels in which to get them.
Mhm.
And then I would guess Tuesday, Mac Mini, Wednesday, iMac, because by that point, no one really cares. And that's kind of a nothing of an update anyway.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. They kind of yeah, the problem is it's like what you said. When they want to do the iMac, we need to know about M4 Pro, probably not Max, but at least we need to know about M4 Pro. And if they do M4 Pro, they're probably going to do M4 Max at the same time. I think it would be a bit weird to do Pro one day and Max the next day.
Yeah,
Not that
they've
it's
never
impossible.
split that up before. They've
They've
always
never
announced
done
the
it
Pro and the
before.
Max chip at the same time.
Yeah, so I feel like it would be a little bit weird if they split it up. And so then yeah, it's like talk about the chips and then the Mac Mini. The MacBook Pro. We've literally seen the MacBook Pro, and it's not that much of a difference other than the chips. So it makes sense. Chips and Mac Pro. It's enough of something to talk about. The Mac Mini on its own is going to be a big enough deal that you don't need to pad that. The MacBook Pro, you want to pad that because there's not much going on.
Mm-hmm.
But here's my my question is I'm very confused, or I'm very curious about why Apple is doing it this way. 2 or 3 days of announcements, probably like press releases, maybe with videos, I don't know. But like, why is this not an event? We were kind of talking about this a little bit. Why is this not an event?
That's a great question there, Noah. I really couldn't tell you. I talked about this when I was on Genius Bar earlier this week, which ironically I don't think has even come out yet. We beat them to their own punch. But
Nice.
anyway, basically, yeah, I really don't know why this is not an event. It really seems like it could have been. We got an event in May for the new iPad Pro, and that was an iPad only refresh, right? We had I would call the new iPad Pro a new design. Barely, but it is a new design. It has enough going on that I would call it different, you know.
Yeah.
Um So we had that, we had the Magic Keyboard, we had the iPad Air and the 13-inch. If that was enough for Apple to call an event, then what are we missing here? Because if we throw in the iPad Mini, which I was not expecting them to announce back then anyway, that would have been it could have been iPad Mini, Mac Mini, new design, M4 Pro and Max, new MacBooks, iMac, and accessories. That seems like plenty for an event. So I don't know why they're doing this. They've never really done something like this before. They've had a couple of like little weird exceptions. Like there was do you remember the M2 MacBook Pro announcement that happened in January?
I think so.
Yeah. Do you remember basically it was like it was a press release and they had like a 20-minute video that was very obviously chopped out of a keynote that ended up not being ready in time or something. So I don't know, maybe maybe that happened here, but they're all kind of releasing around the same time. Like the iPad Mini came out 4 days ago and the MacBook Pros are coming out on Friday. So I really don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I guess the iPad Mini is not really related to the other stuff. So I still feel like if it's coming out around the same time as all the other stuff, like if they're going to do an event, just toss it in the event. But like that one, I guess is kind of not related. I can kind of see it, but like all the other stuff, I think, yeah, I agree with you. There's no reason why it shouldn't be an event. So I wonder if maybe it was like a timeline. So like the M2 thing was they basically chopped that portion of the video out of the like October, well, like the previous October's event. Was that the theory?
Yes, basically, yeah, pretty much that.
Yeah. So I wonder if this is sort of the opposite, where like, I don't know, they didn't have the keynote ready in time, or they're like, maybe these were supposed to launch. No, but this is the typical time, like October-ish,
Yeah.
November-ish is the typical time for this. So I feel like, yeah, I don't know.
They did an event last year for the Macs and I would argue, I think that these chips are going to be a bigger deal than the M3 was. I know last year, the M3 event, a lot of that was focusing on the new N3 node. And now we're doing a refinement of the node and it's not a new process. But I mean, heck, these chips I think are gonna be screamers. And I think a lot of my coverage is gonna be basically talking about how the balance has shifted dramatically because it basically each time Apple does a new chip refresh for these Apple Silicon chips, you end up saving money because the same level of performance that you would have had to pay extra for, you now get for less. So, in the example of the M4 chip, the M4 chip in the iPad is already as fast as the M3 Pro in the MacBook. What the heck? So, you could say, all right, this is a chip refresh of the same computer, who cares? Or you could look at it and say, oh, snap. They just discounted the M3 Pro MacBook Pro by like $500 because in addition to the performance of these chips, the actual packaging is a little bit different. I don't know if you saw this. I think we might have talked about this, but remember when a couple of Russians and Chinese got their hands on the M4 MacBook Pro like a month early?
Oh yeah.
So they only got the base model M4 MacBook Pro, but it had the USB-C port on the right-hand side. And the M3 MacBook Pro doesn't have that. It only has SD card and HDMI on the right side. So they had removed that port for that model last year, and now they're adding it back again. So you're not even giving up any ports by going for that base model, and they all have 16 gigs of RAM. So, I mean, holy heck, that is a fantastic deal.
Yeah, this is like, I definitely agree with you. That's like the nice thing about these. And that's true about all of the, you could say the same thing about the iPhone, that it's like the new one comes out and you say, oh, I'm not going to buy that one. But when I do, jump back in eventually, it's like I'm excited, whatever my next computer is going to be, maybe it'll even be a MacBook Air. We'll see. But I'm like, whatever my next computer is going to be, I'm not upgrading anything. This one I upgraded everything. Okay, maybe the storage, maybe I'll go up to a terabyte of storage, but like the unified memory and the cores and everything, I just don't need to. Not that I really needed to at the beginning, but also like this was new, so we had a pretty good idea of the performance, but maybe we didn't fully know. At this point, I'm 100% sold. Apple Silicon is great, and the base model is, great for me.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And it is really weird to think about how we are now at almost exactly 3 years since you bought that fully decked out M1 Max MacBook Pro. And that thing was an absolute monster. It blew every single Mac ever made out of the water. You would have needed even my 18 core iMac Pro that I had at the time was, that thing would really give it a run for its money. So you bought that thing thinking, holy crap, this is incredible. And the insane part of Apple Silicon is, as much as it has been, calm and steady, they have been regularly improving it to the point that now an M4 base model 14-inch is probably going to outperform the M1 Max that you have in pretty much every way. And that is actually insane. Like, as insane as Apple Silicon already was, the fact that your insane computer is already 3 years later being outdone by a base model, that is truly, truly insane.
Yeah, that is it. That's the great thing about it. And yeah, I'm like, yeah, exactly. M4, I'm not gonna get a device that has any M4 chip in it. My laptop's still good. I still don't need one, but like, when it's time, I'll and I'm still excited. Even though I'm not buying it, I'm still excited to see it, because it'll
Yeah.
come to me one day.
Exactly. Everything that, each update, even if you're not partaking in it, is just telling you, oh, all of this and more is what I'll eventually be getting. And I think what's really interesting is these chips are in a weird spot now, because I think that this is going to be the biggest update since the original M1 chip. So intra Apple Silicon updates, this will be the biggest one. And that's going to make a lot of people go, "Oh, holy cow. Let me get in on this." But I have a feeling that my reviews are going to stress caution, right? If you're buying a Mac Mini, great time, great chip, new design, go for it. But the MacBook Pro, I would maybe be a little bit more apprehensive about. If you're somebody who updates frequently, then of course, get the most power you can get. But a lot of people with laptops will tell me, look, if I'm going to buy a new laptop, I want to buy it at the right time, because this is a 5 to 8 year investment. Even more than that for some people. I have a friend who bought his 2015 13-inch MacBook Pro new, still uses it now. So this is a 10-year thing for some people, and you want to make sure that you're buying it at the right time. And given that this is the fourth spec bump of this design, it kind of makes me think maybe hold off, unless if you're really in desperate need, like Alex that we talked to last week, and he's still on a butterfly keyboard Intel MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
If you're in that situation, I'm like, get your ass to the Apple store and buy an M4 MacBook. But for you, I think waiting is 100% the right move, because then next year, or maybe 18 months from now, when we get a new generation, you're going to be nice and ready.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like yeah, it is interesting because there are some people that have the mentality that they're like, I want to get the most polished version, the most polished device. This was like back in the the early days of the iPhone when we had the S models, and some people were like, the number models, and some people liked the S models because they're like, I want the S one because it's, whatever the problem was, there was always some problem each year, bend gate, antenna gate, whatever. And then the S model was like the one where they fixed the problems and they made it the best that it could be. So like that kind of person that's buying like a 2015 Retina MacBook Pro right before the 2016 came out, which is honestly not a bad idea because that generation was a little bit rough. Or, people, obviously Apple Silicon is a bit different. So I feel like there are maybe some people, so people like Alex, who have been holding out on Apple Silicon for some reason. Yeah, get an M4. It'll be great. And realistically, hopefully we get a new design next year. Maybe it'll be even another year. But like when we do get a new redesign, I don't think it's going to be so drastically different that you'll feel really bad that you got the M4. Like it's not going to be it's not going to be nearly as big of a jump as it was going from Intel to Apple Silicon, because obviously that it's not a new architecture. So it's just, yeah, if you haven't gotten onto Apple Silicon yet, get the computer. If you desperately need a more powerful computer for some reason, get that new computer. But if you're on Apple Silicon right now, I think the majority of people don't need it and probably shouldn't get it.
That's a good point. That is a really good point, because when this generation of MacBook Pro came out, things were really bad. We were on Intel, we were on constrained cooling design, a lot of people were on butterfly keyboard. So this was literally the generation that fixed every single issue that we had in one fell swoop. They said, oh, here's your ports back. Oh, here's actual battery life. Oh, here's better cooling. Oh, and by the way, the chip that it's cooling is like 10 times better also, and a better screen and ProMotion, like all of these things all at once. And we were just like, oh my God, this is incredible. That's not going to be the case with the redesign that we get next year. If I focus is going to be the design and not the chip. So what I think is the M5 generation is not going to be nearly this big. And I think Apple's doing that on purpose, because they're saying, look, we're going to make the most powerful chip for this chassis. So I would expect, this is of course just speculation, but I would expect that next year, when the update is mainly for the design, take those year-over-year chip improvements and put them into efficiency, because I think it would be nice for Apple to slim down these notebooks a little bit. And the only way to do that is by making them produce less heat and consume less battery. As much as I do like this generation of MacBook Pro, let's be honest, they're not the thinnest devices in the world. I love this design, don't get me wrong, but I definitely am starting to get to a point where I'm like, okay, I can see where Apple could go with this design. And I think it'll be subtle. They're not going to change anything too radically. It'll probably have the same rounded edges, but flat top and bottom. It'll be a very mild design update if I had to guess. But I would love to see a little bit of slimming down. I would love to see shrinking the footprint just very, very slightly to have just razor thin bezels. I don't even care about the notch. That's the craziest part. Notch can stay. I don't give a shit. If you slim down the bezels to compete with a lot of the really, really good looking Windows laptops that have almost no bezel these days, that would be nice. OLED would be nice. More efficient chip would be nice. I think that would be a pretty tasty redesign. But as I say, the performance probably not going to be the focus.
Yeah. And then I feel like, yeah, obviously those things will be nice to have. Hopefully they'll actually happen. And if they do, they'll be nice to have. But yeah, like we were saying, if you need a new MacBook Pro, if you are not on Apple Silicon yet, M4 is going to be great for performance. The chassis is been around for a few years, like the design's been around for a few years, so we know it's good. It's been, battle tested. We're happy with it. And when we get a new design next year, it's not going to be that different. And like you said, the performance probably won't be that big of a difference either. So yeah, if you want Apple Silicon, hopefully these machines will be good and you can go for that. And if you're already on Apple Silicon, wait for next year.
Yeah. I mean, heck, I pretty much couldn't say it any better myself. I'll tell you what, though. If we're talking about a broader cohort than the MacBook Pro, we should mention the iMac just because I feel it needs to be said. I think most people are going to completely forget that it was even discussed. I think it's going to come out on Wednesday when everyone's so busy talking about the new Mac Mini and the M4 Max chip that nobody's even going to care. I'm not going to care. I'm not making a video on that. It's the same thing. They're just doing a chip swap. But I think that in itself is a dang shame because the iMac is one of the few devices that has actually suffered under Apple Silicon, despite the fact that it had a lot of promise. I mean, think back to where the iMac was right before Apple Silicon was announced in like 2019.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little long in the tooth, to be fair. The design was pretty old. However, the 27-inch iMac was a fantastic value. When they put, even in 2020, when they updated the iMac after announcing Apple Silicon, that was a good device. It was at the wrong time, but it was a good product, and it had good specs for the money, 5K display, all in one, including a mouse and keyboard. It was a really good value. And the 21.5 inch was a little bit kind of dumb because nobody wants a desktop that small. And then you had the iMac Pro. The iMac Pro was a fantastic device. And I remember the excitement that we had here on the show in 2021. Some of our first episodes were talking about how excited we were for an Apple Silicon iMac, and they have completely shit the bed on it. It's so sad.
No, okay, the redesign that they did was great. The design is great.
Mm-hmm.
I love all the colors. I think it's like really fun. I like the color matched accessories and even were the cables color matched? I don't remember.
They are, yeah.
They are, right? So like
even the little cable to charge the mouse it's all color matched. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. Like I love that. I think it's so much fun. Like, we've talked about this before. This is the device that you see, like you go into some office, like at the reception desk or like retail. Like this is a device that some people, they have it in their homes, and sometimes you see it out in public. And this is like such a good device to give a little splash of color to, and they have a bunch of different color options. And it's an homage to where the iMac's been before, and like the old Apple products that used to have all these different colors, which is really nice. So I love the design, the choice of doing the 24-inch display. I think that makes sense if you're talking about going from a 21.5 up to a 24 to make it a bit more usable. But that's where it stops. Okay, the design's great. 24 inches fine. That's all great. But like, where's the bigger one? Where's the updates over the past 4 years? It's like they had a good thing. They launched the iMac was good. Like it was a good first thing. I liked that. But they have done basically nothing with it since then. They're missing the larger iMac. They're missing an iMac Pro if they're ever going to bring that thing back. They're missing the updates over the past few years. It is a shame. I agree with you.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I think the iMac is more popular than people realize. I've seen them in businesses very often, which makes sense. It's kind of nice if you're an IT department at a company and you're hiring a bunch of graphic designers, it's pretty nice that you can just buy this incredibly easy all-in-one thing where you literally just take it out of the box, put it on a desk, plug it in, and you're done. That's awesome. Very appealing for that reason. And like you said, the 24-inch screen size is a lot better than 21.5. That's tiny. 24, honestly, I think is still a little small, but it works. I still think we need a 30-inch. I think a 30-inch iMac, keep that design a little bit thicker, no chin even. Oh, uh-oh. That's a bit incredible. I would absolutely, I think I would replace my Mac Pro if Apple offered a Pro level, even if it didn't have an Ultra chip. I would pay $3,500 to get a 30-inch M4 Max iMac. Delicious. Gimme.
Yeah, it really, I don't get it. Like, even like legitimately, all they would have to do is produce a 30-inch or even a 32-inch, whatever, produce like a 30-inch display. And even if they did the same, just, stick the M whatever chip, M4 chip or whatever the current chip is, stick that in there. Maybe they could do like they do with the iMac, and they can say you can get the Pro chip in there as well. Maybe the cooling is a concern. I don't know. But like, even if it's just the same chip, M4 chip in both, but you can have a 24-inch option or a 30 to 32-inch option. I feel like just having that bigger, because you've said this before, but a lot of people don't want anything smaller than a 27-inch. I feel like 27 inches is like a pretty common number. That's kind of like the sweet spot. People want the big display. And if you want a big display, iMac is, ruled out, from the start.
Yeah, and the problem is Apple doesn't have any options for a display above 30-inch that are practical. Like, look, I've thought about it time and time again, but I am not buying a Pro Display XDR. At this point, it is way too late. 5 years. And the fact that it has fewer local dimming zones than an iPad is kind of outrageous at the price that it commands. 5 years without any updates is insane. And its price point is just not feasible. I'm a dual monitor person. Honestly, even having dual studio displays was out of the question for me because of A, their price, and B, the fact that it's only 27 inches. A lot of people are fine with 27 inches, but I think that the new 27 inches is 30 or 32. I think if you go back 10 years, 27-inch 5K was pretty much the best that you could ask for. But nowadays, I mean, when you go on, if you look up, let's try this actually. Let's go to Amazon and let's look up 4K monitor and see what the screen sizes that are most popular are. This is an interesting little experiment here. 4K monitor. So we've got, let's look at the search suggestions. The number 1 and 2 is 27 inch. So maybe it is pretty popular. But look, right below that, 144 inch and then 32. So let's look up 4K monitor and let's see what the top results are. Interesting. So the top organic results are 27, 27, 32 curved, 28 inch. That's a weird size. 27 again, 32, 27, 27. There's an ultra wide. That doesn't really count. So it seems like, I mean, based on this extremely unscientific test. Oh, look. And then way down here is a 24 inch, but it's like a really crappy basic one that is not even 4K. So I don't know why that's coming up at all. But like, pretty clear that what people want is 27 and 32. And Apple right now doesn't really cover that market. They have 0 iMacs in that range. Their one display that they have is 27 inches and is $1,600. It's too expensive.
Yeah, it's not great. They really, yeah, I think ideally, I guess ideally they would do, you know, a 27-inch option and a 32-inch option. I
Right.
don't I don't know. I can understand them wanting to keep the 24. Maybe there's people that like having one that's a bit smaller. I don't know. I mean, 27 and 32 I feel like are the standard like display sizes that people expect. So I
Yeah.
could see them doing, you know, 24 and 30, and the 30 is kind of in between a 27 and 32. So I could see them doing that. But like the fact that they only have one iMac size and realistically one display size, because the Pro Display XDR is a professional, like thousands of dollars. Like
Yeah.
that's not a realistic display that people are going to be buying unless it's you need that specific thing. So
Or
I
your
feel
Sam.
like, or you're well, Sam is always the exception. Like if there's
That
ever
is
a
true.
rule, Sam is the exception.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah. So, but I just feel like Apple needs to, they're really neglecting, and it's going to hurt. The thing is, like, I feel like it is going to hurt the Mac Mini as well. It can potentially, because if Apple had a reasonable price display that was big, like let's say that they had the studio display 27 inches and it was like more reasonable price. And then maybe they had a 30 or 32-inch version of that that was also somewhat reasonably priced. They could come out with this Mac Mini and they could be like, look, you can get these displays from us, these great displays, and they work perfectly with your Mac Mini. You know, you do the brightness thing and the brightness works. That's like always a thing that's, you know, good about Apple displays. And they can say, look at these great displays. Here are two options. You don't have to use their displays, obviously. That's one of the nice things. But here are two great options that the vast majority of people will be happy with at least one of them. But they don't have that.
That's a great point. And they're really leaving a lot of money on the table here. Like, I think it is such a shame that they're about to announce a Mac Mini with an update that we've all been super excited for without a monitor to go with it, at least as far as I'm aware. Like, we haven't heard anything from our GOAT, Ross Young, and he, you know, years ago was reporting on Apple's development of a 5K 27-inch 144 hertz mini LED panel, and I was like, holy cow, that's awesome. And then he said they gave up, they couldn't get it to work, and they ended up going with a regular old, same old, no local dimming zone 60 hertz panel in the studio display. And it would be absolutely criminal if Apple announces on Tuesday a new Mac Mini with no new display to go with it. They're literally leaving money on the table because there are going to be millions of people that buy this Mac Mini within the next, 6 months. And if I was one of them, I would look at Apple's monitor offerings, which is a $1,600 7-year-old panel, or that's also too small for me, or a $5,000 also old panel that is lacking in today's technology. Not a chance. Not a chance that I would buy that. But I'm the type of a simp that if presented with a viable option, if Apple had a $2,000 32-inch ProMotion display, I'd buy it. I'd buy two. I'm that much of a simp. But they won't do it.
Yeah, and it's funny because they're gonna, you know, one of the rumors we talked about is that they're gonna update the keyboard and trackpad and mouse to have USB-C. And I don't know if they're gonna do anything else to it, but at the very least they'll get USB-C. And then the whole Mac Mini is, you know, bring your own display, keyboard, mouse, right? And Apple's like, here's this great new Mac Mini. Here's the keyboard, mouse, trackpad that are updated for USB-C. I don't know if they'll do anything else, but at least they'll have USB-C. And then display, yeah, we got to go look somewhere else for that. We're not going to be of much help there. Sorry.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. What are they thinking? I just don't get why. I mean, it's kind of ironic looking back on it because the original Mac Mini was bring your own display, keyboard, and mouse, and then eventually they were kind of like, well, we'll make those two. You just got to buy them separate.
Mhm.
Uh, and then for this one, they just couldn't be bothered. I mean, unless we're gonna get surprised. If that is an unexpected additional announcement, I'm gonna do cartwheels and backflips. I have been wanting another Apple display for a long time. They used to be, people forget this, they used to be really, really good at displays. Did you know that in 2004, Apple literally created dual link DVI just so that they could make the largest display in the world, which was a 30-inch 1440p monitor in 2004. That's insane.
I actually did know that, but only because of you.
And well, that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair enough. I am the type of guy who would always yap about that to you. But for good reason. I had one of those displays. I didn't bring it when I moved because I didn't have room for it. I actually gave it to Colin because it needed a little bit of work on it. So I was like, I'm not going to sell it. Let's give it to Colin. He loves those things. I don't know if he's gotten around to fixing it. Oh wait, look at that. He's using it right now. Look at that. He's watching dark mode on that very same cinema display.
We
That
love to
thing
hear it.
is incredible. Honestly, you know what? I might have to do a video at some point. I might have to just buy two of those and dual monitor it with two 30-inch cinema displays. Oh, I like that because they still look really good. Even though they're 1440p, the colors on those things are outrageous and they're super sleek. They're very, very minimal. And that was 2004. They had a whole range of monitors. Even through the 2010s, they had the cinema display, uh, the Thunderbolt display, which was it was the same panel as the iMac, but at least they had something. And now they have like the worst options ever.
Yeah, that would be a funny video to be like, Apple does not offer a monitor larger than 27 inches that is meant for consumers. So let's go all the way back. Let's go 20 years in the past to get, when they used to offer that, and let's use it today, and like it, still holds up.
Mm-hmm. Come on now. What are we doing? It's such a shame. I mean, I guess they could surprise us. I don't think they're gonna. I almost wish that I didn't think of this because now I know that even though I'm telling myself it's not going to happen, I'm still going to be a little disappointed when it doesn't.
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
But, I really do think that they're leaving money on the table. That's really what they're doing. And it's confusing. I feel like Apple has gotten honestly kind of lazy. I actually just returned my iPad mini today because I wanted to keep it. I was like, look, this is the time. I knew it was coming. I was waiting. I said, I didn't like the iPad mini 6. Maybe they'll finally fix it. And they didn't. It still had jelly scrolling. It still has a display that doesn't scale well in iPad OS. It's not really, it's a weird device because it really shouldn't have iPad OS. And then I guess iOS would make more sense, but at $500 for what is realistically going to be like a tertiary device, you have your iPad, you have your MacBook, you have your iPhone, and then you get an iPad mini. It's your fourth quadriary. What would come after tertiary? What's the word?
Quaternary? I actually don't know.
Quaternary. Yeah.
I don't know if that's
it's
right.
It's a quaternary device. And for $500, it kind of feels like a little piece of shit. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I mean, I bought that thing when I was right, by the way, quaternary. I'm a genius.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. So I bought that thing when it came out, and then I returned it, and yeah, because I just like didn't have a use for it. And then because like you said, it's a quaternary device, and I don't even use my iPad. So it's like if I'm not gonna use my iPad, what am I gonna do with an iPad
Yeah.
Mini?
The
So,
thing is, I honestly think as I sometimes dabble in your realm. Like my iPad usage is wavering, mainly
mhm,
because I think iPad OS is kind of weird. But the reason why I almost kept the iPad mini this time was it is small enough that it feels like you're doing iPhone stuff with a little bit of extra screen space. Like you still hold it two-handed, you can type two-handed like on a phone, but you have more room. And it's actually, I think, as a size, really, really good. But as a product, the iPad mini doesn't feel right because the display quality isn't good enough. That's really the big problem that I have with it. Now it's on the A17 Pro, 8 gigs of RAM, supports Apple Intelligence. That's all fine and good. I don't have an issue with that. I don't have an issue with the fact that it doesn't have Face ID as much as I would like if it did. I don't have an issue with the single camera because who gives a shit what camera is on an iPad mini? But really, the screen lets it all down. I think I said this on Genius Bar, but I guess no one's heard that yet, so I'll say it again here. I think Apple could fix the iPad mini with a very, very simple update. You keep the price at $499. Actually, no. It's too expensive. This is a long list. This is probably not something Apple would do, but to make the iPad mini perfect within the limitations of existing iPad OS, I would do the following. Number 1, price tag is now $449. Number 2, display is OLED. That's non-negotiable. It can even stay 60 hertz. I'd prefer 120, but it can stay 60 if it has to, but it has to be OLED. Number 3, get rid of the jelly scrolling. For fuck's sake, what are you guys doing? You had 3 years to get rid of the jelly scrolling, and you didn't do it. Come on. The old iPad mini, the 5th gen that came out like 100 years ago. I'm pretty sure President Roosevelt had one of those things, and it didn't have jelly scrolling. Like, come on. And then the 4th thing is I would keep the form factor exactly the same, but make the display a little bit bigger. Thinner bezels, 8.5 instead of 8.3 inches. That's an iPad right there. It would make the scaling better. It would feel smoother. It would feel higher quality. Give me that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing when I had mine was, and like, to be clear, they put the new chip in it, and that's basically all they did compared to the one that I had. So I feel like I have enough authority to complain about this, even though I haven't used it. But my main thing, like, aside from the fact that I didn't have a use for it, obviously the display and the jelly scrolling, which was noticeable, the jelly scrolling and the fact that the display wasn't, it's not a pro device, doesn't have a pro display. Okay, fine. But the scaling was just so bad. Like, the home screen looks comically bad. Like, there's huge margins on the sides, and the icons are like squished in the middle, and I don't know. It was just such like, iPad OS just looked so bad on it. And
Mm-hmm.
and
they didn't fix it.
and they didn't fix it. They had so much time. Like, if that was the initial thing, it's not that it's excusable, but like, if it came out like that and they're like, okay, but it's going to get better. But they've had major iOS versions that have come out since then. Not even, 0.1, 0.2, but major versions, and they never bothered to fix it.
And I mean, the closest thing that they did to fixing it was the new iPad OS larger icons. That does make a big difference. I turn that on immediately, because otherwise the thing looks stupid. But even with it on, it's like, why are all of the icons huddled in the middle for warmth? They're like a group of penguins, and they're like, oh no, we mustn't get near the edge. We'll freeze to death. Why do that? Not to mention it. I also, in my video, I pulled up Final Cut Pro. They put
Oh
Final Cut
boy.
Pro on that thing and it is not usable. The problem is, once again, they're not scaling things properly. So all of the visual elements were the same size, which meant that you literally can't see anything. The timeline is this tall.
Oh
Like
no.
if you put a video and then you put an audio track on it, that is already too big to actually see in the timeline. So if you have anything stacked up and down, you're always scrolling around. It's like playing Minecraft with the render distance set to one chunk. That's what it feels like to use an iPad mini. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's, I mean, yeah, the scaling it's it goes back to the scaling, and it goes back to the like, what are you going to do with this thing? Because it's like, it's that thing where it's like too small to really be an iPad. And then at that point, it's like, what is it? But it's too big to be a phone that you're going to put in your pocket and carry around with you. So it's just like, we're obviously, you can think of some uses for it, but it's like, you really have to like consciously say, I'm gonna do this thing on my iPad mini. I'm not gonna use my regular iPad. I'm not gonna use my phone. I'm gonna use the iPad mini for this thing, because I
Mhm.
want to use my iPad mini.
Yeah. No, and that we should end.
Yeah.
But my final thought on the iPad mini is what a dang shame, because they had it right. The first ever iPad mini, that was, I think, only the second or third Apple product ever that I bought. And I absolutely love that thing. I kept it for like 4 years, even though it was non-retina, non-touch ID. It was really slow by the end, but it was such a thin and light and pretty design. People also forget that the iPad mini was when it came out, it was the design leader. That design is what became the iPad Air design, which stuck around until like a year ago. It was that good. And now it's just, hey, what if an iPad Air was smaller and worse?
Yeah. Yeah. Not good.
Come on. Well, anyway, we should probably go because it's going to be a busy week. Now, if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, why? How? Weird.
Yeah, that's
Odd thing
I don't
to
think that's
do.
possible.
Yeah, but if somehow that is the case, subscribe instantaneously. All right. And get excited because I'm going to have a bunch of videos. This is actually an interesting time because I prefer when Apple doesn't do events like this because people watch the event. They don't need me to tell them stuff. But tomorrow, I'm going to be able to tell you stuff because if you don't want to watch Apple, drone on about it, come to me. I'm going to give you guys the down low on how the whole thing works, what it all means. We're going to have a good time. Video tomorrow. Probably, it's going to be a busy week. Let's put it that way. Video tomorrow for sure. Probably another video Tuesday or Wednesday. And then Friday video. Well, it might come out Saturday, but videos for the actual release of the new products. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about here. So let me go conserve my energy, I suppose.
Yeah. And then we'll be back here next week to talk about everything that happens this week.
Whoa, 4 podcasts in a row? What are we, crazy?
I know. I mean, yeah, maybe I shouldn't jinx it, but as far as we know, we will be back here next week to talk about all of the exciting things that happened this week. So definitely come back next week and we'll talk about it.
And until then, I've been your host, Luke Miani.
And I've been your host, Noah Rubin. Have a great night.